There is a trend sweeping the nation, and it's called the Nepo baby.
That's right. They walk amongst us, some in the shadows you don't even know, but their mom is secretly the CEO.
Today, we're going to be unpacking the nepotism trend. And is it all bad?
Is nepotism really just networking? And maybe we'll explore how you can make nepotism work for you.
Let's get into it.
Kayla, we have a very exciting episode for the listeners today.
Ooh, Kyle.
We're getting into nepotism, Nepo babies. And this is a very important topic. I feel like Walter Cronkite here, bringing the important news to the American people. First, let's start with definitions.
Sure.
There is this trend of like calling out Nepo babies or Nepo baby just coming into the lexicon. Yeah. What is a Nepo baby to you?
To me, well, so I think when we're talking about nepotism, which is what Nepo is short for, the true definition, and I think you actually have it written down, so I'm gonna wing it, and you tell me if I'm right.
Okay.
Is a direct hire or direct benefits due to the fact that your parent is doing something.
Yeah.
And you get to benefit from it.
I'll give you a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
So yes, we're talking about nepotism, and what a fun topic. I will give you the definition from Indeed.com.
Okay.
Not a sponsor, should be though. Nepotism is a type of workplace favoritism shown towards family members. The Latin root of the word is nepos, meaning nephew. This does not mean that you only could hire your nephew. So basically, it's leveraging connections with your family members to put you in positions to succeed, sometimes unearned. So that is what nepotism is. And I think the world has really blown up around this word.
Yep.
And we've identified Nepo babies. It's been a trend on social media to be like, you would never know that X is actually a Nepo baby because their mom or their dad really gave them this opportunity. And I think we probably all have some stories too of seeing people in the workplace where you're like, would they have this job if they didn't know the CEO? Like maybe they wouldn't. So it is a fun topic to explore.
Yes. And I think that the Nepo baby as a term has kind of removed a little bit from the exact definition of nepotism.
Okay.
But I think one thing that we can all agree on is that it has a negative connotation.
Yeah.
The idea is that a Nepo baby has done something that they didn't earn. Their success is unearned. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the idea that Nepo babies are bad babies.
We'll get into it. One, I want to go on record. I wish I was a Nepo baby.
Of course.
That sounds amazing. Hate all you want. If my dad was like Barack Obama, we'd be cooking. That'd be amazing. So no offense to my own father.
Right.
Love you, Dad. I think that Nepo babies, they do have a negative connotation, but it's because of the idea. I think that they didn't earn or they only have a negative reputation if they're actually not that talented. But I think we'll explore in this conversation, you find out someone who is very talented actually had like a connection to get into the industry, but then they're good.
Right.
I think people don't really hate that. My sense is they hate it if you're actually not talented and you would have lost your job or you wouldn't have been given the opportunity except for your connection. That's what I think people don't like.
Yes, but I do think that there are some great, like, I think this is a big conversation in like Hollywood, right?
Okay.
Because it's easy to be like, this is a famous person, and look, their parents are also famous. Mm-hmm. But for example, like, I don't know, Liza Minnelli, okay? She's a Nepo. She's the original Nepo baby. And like, but that doesn't mean she doesn't deserve it. She's a great singer. She's a great actress. She's very funny in Arrested Development. Mm-hmm. But it's like, yeah, she was technically a Nepo baby, but it's like, does that mean that any of her accomplishments should be dismissed in any way? Maybe not. And I think right now the idea is if you're a Nepo baby, if you've had that starting point that's a little bit maybe farther along than your average, small town girl from Kansas City that just like starts waitressing in LA and like hopes for her big break. Like, does that mean that anything that you've accomplished is is not worthy or is bad or is not real. I think that's where it gets a little interesting. And obviously it's different in Hollywood versus the workplace.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's still similar connotations in the workplace.
So I like your call out of Hollywood, but this also affects, as you said, every industry in some manner. I have some stats from Harvard Magazine
okay.
that kind of set the scene about how rampant nepotism actually is. So before turning 30, 1 in 3 Americans will work for a firm that their parent works for.
It's a lot.
So by a very strict definition of like nepotism, they walk amongst us. 1 in every 3 Americans will work for a parent's firm by the time they're 30. In fact, you're 200 times more likely to work for a parent's firm in the same geography as opposed to another firm in that same location that your parent doesn't have a tie to. So I think it's speaking to the power of social connections to guide you throughout your life. And for those that do work for a parent's firm that fall into this 1/3 bucket, you'll earn 20% more than a peer who has a similar job. So it's a little easier to get in the door. You're more likely to skew towards your parent's firm. And if you get into your parent's firm, you're going to make a little more money. And they actually found that this is more prevalent in blue collar, quote unquote, blue collar work. It's a massive problem in manufacturing. Harvard Magazine called out. So this does affect everyone. And I think just taking a step back, we all have heard these stories. It's like you're in high school or you're in college and you go work an internship.
Yeah.
You just get an internship that your like parent works at, you know? That's how you might get started in your career. And that is definitely a form of privilege. And then it starts to snowball. Like now you have something on your resume. You learn new skills. You can get your first job. You make a little more money than you would. So it starts early, clearly, and it benefits you for the rest of your career. And, you know, we can pull apart what's fair and what's not.
I think this is really interesting because you mentioned privilege, and I think it's like, okay, what does nepotism actually like? Okay, my dad is my boss. That feels like directly related to nepotism, right? Like
this is a hypothetical. You do not work.
No. Yes,
your dad
Austin
does not work
is
for.
Not my dad. He's no, I do not work for my dad, but as an example, you know, or versus I interned, which is true. I interned with my dad when I was a sophomore in college.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's why I've never respected you since.
But like it was so random. It has nothing to do with anything I've ever done before, but it was a line item when I needed a line item on my resume. And it was really fun. It was cool. I got to go to Vegas. It was actually really sick. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I didn't make any money. Like I wasn't an I-9 or whatever W-2 employee or anything.
Yeah.
But I got to add it to my list. I got to meet people. I got to like understand what it was like to work.
Yeah.
You know, in real life. And it was great.
I think this is a good point, which is I think when we talk about nepotism or Nepo babies and we get like really worked up about it, what we're really talking about is privilege. And this is one way privilege can like influence your life.
Right.
But taking me, for example, like my dad was an accountant and like a CFO. If you've seen me in a spreadsheet, you know, that ain't me. My mom was a elementary school like librarian. I did teach when I first got out of college, but it was a separate city, separate whole program.
Yeah.
So like I didn't leverage any of my parents' work experience to give me work experience early in my career that set me up for success. But that doesn't mean that I haven't benefited greatly from other resources, connections, learnings, privilege, opportunity because of who my parents were in the life they afforded me. And so while I'm not a Nepo baby, I definitely am very privileged.
Yeah.
And have I used that privilege to grow in my career, to get opportunities? Yes. So like it's tough to disentangle what's fair about privilege and what isn't fair because it's just a fact of life. Like some people have many more opportunities than others, and to the extent of like what can you do about it, some of this stuff is really tough to change. So my take is like people are fine with nepotism or like privilege if it's helping you like learn about an opportunity that you might not have learned about otherwise. So like learning about, you know, some career is fine. It's when they feel like you haven't earned it though. Like you get something that you're not actually talented, you didn't actually earn it. So I think learning about something is great. Getting something that you didn't earn, probably not good.
Well, but this is the thing is how do you get any job?
Yeah.
Like, did you earn the job when when somebody takes a chance on you, whether they're your parent or your aunt or your uncle or, your cousin or a random person that you met on LinkedIn? Like, proving that you earned something is like functionally impossible.
Yes. Agreed.
And so I think it's one of those things that's like, I think where Nepo becomes a problem is like, oh gosh, it's like the kid, the kid's the intern and he's saying whatever he wants to say and he's, playing Game Boy in the corner and still getting that resume line item.
Yep.
That's what I think the true like bad rep Nepo baby is. But if you're using your connections to your advantage, like I understand feeling envious of that.
Yeah.
But you can't fault somebody for using their opportunities that they have provided to them. Like, I don't know, a random, like, I feel like Hollywood is the easiest because it makes the most sense. Like, if you have the opportunity at 6 years old to become an actor in your parents' film.
To star in This Is 40,
Right.
for example.
Like, Maude Apatow. Yeah, you probably don't even have that much agency in that.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, oh, I'm going to learn how to start acting. And so then you have a more padded resume and then you're getting more opportunities because people can see you from that movie. And it's like, I think that you should be able to take advantage of those things. You can't choose where you were born.
Yeah.
And like, if you're a good actress, you should get good opportunities.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it sucks that other people didn't get that opportunity because you were born to a famous couple.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think there is downsides of letting nepotism infiltrate a company or an industry. And it is, while it might be like, yeah, of course, like I would take, if I'm 6, I'm not going to be like, well, actually, father, have you ran an effective process to analyze all 6-year-olds about their acting ability? Like, have you considered that, Judd? I get it from like an individual perspective, taking advantage of it, but I do think it's worth saying it does affect the industry and the company for other people.
Yep.
And one of the downsides of letting nepotism run rampant is this idea that there's different sets of expectations or consequences for different people at a company, whether they're related to the CEO or the founder or not. It sucks when you're like, if I'm held to a different standard than someone else.
Yep.
So if there's like, the classic intern who's like messing around, can say whatever they want, has stupid ideas, but no one can say anything to them because the boss gets mad and takes it out on them, like that's a really bad thing.
Yeah.
And the idea that, Hollywood is kind of this like ripe example that it actually isn't fair, does it stop people from actually pursuing this industry? Or by people saying that, have they just said, yeah, we can't do anything about it, so it continues to be rampant? So I think it's worth calling out. It just, to your point, there's this very fine line between nepotism and like networking or like seizing the opportunities that you have in front of you. And yeah, it's a very fine line.
Thank you for that segue
Yes.
because I have 2 stats
Okay.
that I would like to bring up. So, according to Applied, 68, I don't know who they are, but whatever. It showed up on my Google.
Yeah.
68% of Gen Z workers have used who they know to get a job offer. And this was under the like, nepotism is on the rise. My thought to this is what 7 in 10 people have used who they know to get a job offer. Is this not just networking?
Yeah.
This is not nepotism.
Yeah.
Like Nepo babies have become so like, I don't know, like toothless. Like that's literally just doing what you need to do to get a job.
Yeah.
And the second is only 1 out of 10 people would not use their network to land a dream job per HR News.
Also, like, no, that's not like you're
telling
who's the one person? Let me
Like
talk to them.
literally. So it's like 90% of people would use connections to get their dream job. No shit.
Yeah.
They better. Like, how else are you going to get the dream job?
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. It's just networking.
Yeah. So I think there is this idea, and I think the Nepo babies can teach us something, is that like the power of social connections, right? The power of connections. And so this idea that like the world's, when you apply, like there's a vacuum and no one knows who you are and they're only looking at your resume and then they're like somehow 100% identifying the right person for the role. Like that might sound all good, but that's not how it works.
Right.
And so like knowing someone that can at least like bump your resume to the top, or knowing someone that can vouch for the skills you have is a really important part in landing your dream role or getting the job you want. And to pretend like it's not doesn't fix the problem and disadvantages you.
Right.
Now, we're not saying like, again, like hire people that aren't talented, but I do think the idea that like your connections, your weak ties surface opportunities that you might not have learned of otherwise, like that's 100% true. And the more loose ties, weak ties, connections you can have, the more opportunities you will find, the more opportunities that you increase your chance of finding an opportunity that's a really good fit for you and eventually landing your dream job. So to ignore the power of a network, I think only disadvantages you.
So it's interesting because you just said like loose ties or weak ties.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the spectrum of like networking to nepotism is about the strength of the tie. Now that I've said it, I'm like, wow, this is so innovative and I'm so smart. And it's like, no shit, that's actually the definition. Is like the strength of the tie that got you the job.
Yeah.
So networking is like, you know, oh, my friend of a friend who I met at an event has a job opening and I had a coffee with them and they're referring me. That feels like that's classic networking. That's a loose tie. That's a weak tie that you should absolutely be leveraging to get a job. The stronger, the closer you get to that person, the closer to being perceived as nepotism it is, and the more careful you have to be that you're still hiring somebody that's like the right person for the job.
Right.
And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show. I have actually an anecdote that I completely forgot about until right now.
Yes.
So my best friend, dear friend, I met her at work. She is genuinely one of the smartest people I have ever encountered. But we're very, very close, and we've maintained connection after working together.
Yeah.
You know, we go on trips, whatever. We're close, we're friends.
I'm going to make you prove it. Pull up a photo. Where's your vacation?
Here we go.
Yeah.
She was interviewing for a job that was the hiring manager was somebody I knew very well. That person did not know that I was very, very close friends with the person who was interviewing.
Yeah.
And he came to me and was like, oh, I see that you worked with this person. Like, how did it go? Like, are they? And I was honest. I said, this is one of the smartest people I have ever encountered. And they are amazing and will absolutely like be the best fit for this role. And I meant it sincerely.
Yeah.
So it's like, and she ended up getting the job, you know? So like, that's amazing. Was that nepotism? No. Like, he didn't know that I knew her very well.
Yeah.
Like and everything I said was true.
Yeah.
But is it like, oh, that's a strong tie and she used that strong tie to get the job, or not really, like barely. I just like gave, like, what is it called? Where it was like a reference check.
Yeah.
Like a backdoor check or whatever. And it wasn't that thing that got the job. But technically, was that nepotism? I don't know.
I mean, I think there's the way the world should be, and we can like debate that, but there's the way the world is, and what you've outlined is exactly the way the world is.
Yeah.
And you're not lying. You're just saying like, yes, this person is very talented. How can you say that? It's because you had an existing relationship with them. So again, I think like if you're learning about opportunities through your network, that's all fine. If you're earning opportunities that you don't deserve, that's where people rightfully get very pissed. And if she wasn't talented, if she comes in and like starts messing up the entire company, like that just ruins it for everyone. And that is not good. So if I'm like a hiring manager, I want people to surface the opportunity to talented people in their network, but it is also on you to actually do the assessment, feel confident this is the right person, and don't just favor people because they were referenced by one person or the other.
So I feel like we've kind of been talking about this from the hiring perspective.
Yeah.
But from the hiree, from the person trying to get hired, I think we should talk about how to make nepotism work for you.
How to make nepotism work for you.
Because I think that's important. And we've many a time talked about the importance of networking and building that network of loose ties. Those are the ones who are most likely going to get you the job. But let's take the tactics that Nepo babies use and let's make them work for ourselves, even if we don't have a famous parent.
We are democratizing nepotism.
Yes, look at us.
That's what we're doing.
Amazing.
We're breaking down walls.
So one tactic that I have is I'd like to call the 7 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon. Have you seen this?
Yes.
Where it was like a classic thing in like, I don't know, the early aughts or whatever.
Yeah.
where it was like, okay, find a random celebrity, and within 7 degrees of connections, you'll get to Kevin Bacon, which is so random. He, for the youths, he was an actor. He still is, but
Yeah.
I actually don't know if he's acting anymore.
I don't know. We'll have to check in on Kevin after the show.
Yep, I'll call him. He's
Yeah.
my close, dear personal friend. It's actually how I got the podcast. But you can do the same thing, right? Like, let's say that you are looking for a job in a specific industry, and there's one specific person that you know is hiring. What are your degrees of separation? You might not know somebody that knows them, but how can you get there? How can you make those weak ties feel even stronger, or no ties at all feel like weak ties?
Yeah. And it might be hard to do that when you need it. Like, people often say, like, the best time to build a network is not when you need it. And there's a really great book I recommend everyone read. It's called The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg Jay. And in that book, she talks about the power of weak ties, which are the people who are in your network, but they're not like really close friends, but you're aware of them. They know who you are. And the power of that is, for your very close ties, you've kind of realized all the opportunity that exists within that close group because they're close to you. Weak ties are where like these like you're not aware of all the opportunities that they have. And so building loose connections with a lot of people will surface these opportunities. So when you do apply to a job and you're like, wow, this is really interesting. That person I met at that networking event and we've like exchanged a few emails, like they know the hiring manager there. I'm going to hit them up and say, hey, I just applied. Could you let the hiring manager know that my application's in? You're not saying like, give me the job, but what they're going to do is the hiring manager isn't going to look at your resume. You've increased the chances of getting the interview. I think that's very fair. If they're hiring you because you know some random person, I mean, the company is an idiot. So like, don't do that. But you are going to increase your chances of getting an interview, of getting an opportunity to demonstrate your talent. That's going to come from weak ties. So the more you can build that network, the better. So I think that's a very good tactic. The other thing I would say is like what nepotism instructs us is like having a parent that works in a certain industry and can give you insights into that industry from an early age is very powerful. So whether your parent works there or not, what I think that tells everyone is like finding a mentor is really, really important. Nice. And particularly finding a mentor early in an industry you want to grow into is critical. Like if you're in college, can you find a mentor that works in the entertainment industry if you want to work there, or the finance industry if you want to work there, and just start soaking up through osmosis, like the terms they use, the language they use, their career journey. You're going to find opportunities from that as well. And so it's like creating your own little nepotism through mentorship.
If you don't have a famous mom or dad, create your own.
Yes, exactly. I'm telling you, we're democratizing nepotism. We're on to something here. So I think mentorship is like a really critical part. And we've seen how that plays out for, Nepo babies. So go make your own.
So on that note, I'd like to play a game.
Yeah. I love a game.
Okay, so we're calling this Nepo or Not. And I have a few situations, and I'd love you to outline first if you think it's nepotism, and second if you think it's like cool, above board.
Yeah.
Okay. First, you have a famous parent in the same industry that you are in, and I'll have some examples after.
And it's helped me get something.
Yeah, it's like this is the nepotism part. Like, okay, I'll give you the examples.
Okay.
Jack Quaid, he's an actor. His father is Dennis Quaid, but he's been in The Boys, Hunger Games, a variety of different.
So this is where I think that it's the distinction between, I haven't seen Jack Quaid act, so I'd have to do that.
He's wonderful.
Like if they're good at acting, then I don't think it's an abuse of power, because really Nepo babies, what they have again is like privilege, and that isn't equally distributed, and it's not fair, but it's true. So if I grew up with a parent that is an actor and I'm like going to their movies, going to their TV shows, I'm learning through them. I'm taking it really seriously when I'm 5. Of course you're a better actor than Kyle Hagee, who like, I didn't know what actors, I thought movies were real probably until I was like 10 or something. So like, of course you're going to be better than me. Now, are you better for like a fair reason? You're better because of privilege? Yes. And that's an issue that we should try to fix as a society, to give people equal opportunity. But at the end of the day, they're going to hire the best person, whether they got lucky and were trained when they were 5 or they didn't. So in Jack Quaid's case, if they're good at acting, I think that's fine. The issue is when it's clear that they suck.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, bro, Jack cannot act. Like, he doesn't deserve this role. That's where I think it's an issue.
So this is interesting because also, sorry, Dennis. I don't think Dennis Quaid is like such a big deal that like the director of The Boys would cast Jack because they want to like curry favor with Dennis.
Yeah, they're like, dude, if we don't hire Jack, Dennis is gonna
He's gonna be so
he's
mad.
gonna tank our career.
But the reality is probably, Dennis has been in the circles and Jack has grown up in the circles and he has all these connections because they went to high school together with the dads or whatever. That I completely understand. I think there's also things where like, I don't know, there's a new Netflix show that I actually have been watching that I don't think is very good. That's
I feel like every show you tell me about, you're like, it's not good. I love it. I'm like, oh, interesting.
And like, I'm not shitting on this person in particular, but it's like a dad and his son are a parent-son couple. And I don't think the son is very good at acting.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say what it is. Again, they're not going to be mad at me.
Yeah.
It's Rob Lowe and his son. I don't think the son is very good.
Yeah.
But it's like very clearly like Rob Lowe wanted his son to be in something.
Right. And that's,
Fine.
I mean, that's where I'm like, that's not fair. And I think it's worth calling out if they're actually bad at their job. So, Rob, talk to us after because we have some suggestions for you. I will say, though, something that is important in this conversation, if you're trying to figure out like why, I think is actually looking at the business model. And for Hollywood, like, it's not necessarily about being a good actor. It's about getting people to the theater to make money. So if I'm a Hollywood director, my goal is probably for this film to make money. Am I going to hire the random person that's a little better at acting, or I'm going to hire Kylie Jenner?
Yeah.
I'm going to hire Kylie Jenner because like everyone's going to come to the movie. It's going to make money because she has built this large audience. So it just speaks to like, there's just some inequities in society that then as you see, like it continues to perpetuate. And some of them make like logical sense from like the firm level. Hollywood movies want to make money. So they're going to put someone that's very famous in their movies because they get butts and seats.
That makes sense. I'll do one more like Hollywood-ish one and then we'll go to like the real workplace ones. Famous parent in different industry. So I have two examples. Zoe Kravitz, an actress. Her dad, obviously Lenny Kravitz, is a famous singer. And Gracie Abrams, who is a famous singer whose dad is J.J. Abrams, the movie director.
Okay, I have a good take here, I think. I like calling I like calling out my own takes. I mean, I don't know either of these two people that well, so and apparently Gracie Abrams is like blown up now.
Yeah.
So I can't say anything about the music. I think the issue that people have with Nepo babies is the refusal to acknowledge privilege. And Allison Williams, whose dad is Brian Williams, said this. She was like, I have no problem admitting that I had advantages growing up because I had a famous dad who had a lot of connections and I could learn from. And at the end of the day, like, if you believe in your own like skill and people actually think you're good, I think that all goes away. It's when people like try to say, oh no, I'm like I'm self-made. I pulled myself up from my bootstraps. Okay, J.J. Abrams is your dad. No, you didn't. And so I think just the first step for all of this is like recognize your privilege. I have a ton of privilege myself. Like it's really not that hard to at least say like, yeah, I've benefited from it. After that, like, yeah, if you're talented, I think people will quote unquote forgive you. If you're not, then it's a problem and it should be called out.
Okay, moving on to the actual workplace.
Okay.
You have a connected parent in the same industry. So the example I made up is your mom is a marketing exec and you want to be a marketing exec.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at in your career. I don't think that's nepotism unless your mom hires you, you're not qualified, clearly. They're treating you differently in the workplace, like 100%, call that out. That's very, very wrong. If you're in high school and you get an internship and now you're actually a fantastic marketer just because you've learned more, like, yeah, again, it makes sense. Like, is learning unfair? Like, it's tough to really say one way or the other. Like, yeah, you had opportunities others didn't, but because of those, you're very talented now. So it's probably okay.
Okay. I think I agree. Next one, second to last, you and your mom work at the same school.
Well, it's like you're both teachers or something?
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you're a teacher, God bless you. We need more of them, and we should be paying them like 10 times more. So
Like
I don't.
J. Abrams is paid.
If you're a Nepo baby, but you're like, because my mom was a teacher, I want to be a teacher, God bless you. 10 extra salary and get more people to do that. So I love that, actually.
Okay. It's whatever the opposite of a negative nepotism.
Yes.
And finally, and this is a real example that blew my mind, and I think is the reason why we wanted to talk about this in the first place, is you are a singer and your aunt wrote a popular children's book.
I actually don't remember who this is, so please just tell us.
So this is someone named Lola Young.
Okay.
She got very popular for her song Messy, which is like all over TikTok and Instagram and everything. It's a very good song. And then there was this big reveal where she's like actually secretly a Nepo baby because her aunt, Julia Donaldson, wrote The Gruffalo, which I guess is a famous UK children's book.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh, she's a plant. She's an industry plant. Like she's a Nepo baby. Her aunt is famous. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, if you just have a famous person that's hasn't helped you, is in a different industry, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think the perception there is like, oh, you've had these privileges that I thought that you were like me coming up, from a nobody. Again, it's like, is somebody that maybe it's the wealth. That's what it is. Like she sold a bunch of children's books.
Yeah.
And was able to like give her niece a loan or something. I genuinely don't know what it was, but.
But to that point, I think that's why when we're talking about this, you just need to talk about privilege, which is like, I wouldn't say it's a Nepo baby, but having a rich aunt who maybe could support extracurricular activities that allow you to learn and grow and get connections. Like, of course, you're going to take advantage of that. And it's not fair because not everyone had those opportunities. But I'm not going to sit here and like ruthlessly attack the person who, when they were 10, went to a camp because that their aunt paid for.
Right. And it's like, okay, she didn't get connections because her aunt wrote The Gruffalo.
Yeah, which I just have to say, sounds like Mark Ruffalo's alter ego. Mark Ruffalo would be an incredible like villain era for this guy. I have 3 that I just want to quickly run by that I think highlight some of my thoughts. The first is Bronny James.
Yeah.
He's on the Lakers. He got drafted. I think he's a Nepo hire because he wouldn't have got picked where he got picked.
He's LeBron James.
For the Lakers, it makes sense. You want to keep LeBron happy. Yep. So like I get why it happened. It feels a little sketchy. Maude Apatow.
Yeah, we've referenced.
We've referenced Judd Apatow's daughter. That's like borderline because I think she's actually like pretty good at acting now.
But again, this is the exact example.
Yeah.
So her mother is Leslie Mann, who's a famous actress.
Yes.
Her father is Judd Apatow, who is a director and producer and funny guy. She's been in their movies.
All the kids.
Been the child in almost every movie, as have her other sisters, and then she was cast in Euphoria.
Right.
She was a good actress in Euphoria.
So if she's good, it's like it's probably fine. Yeah. But she should just be aware that like she had a ton of privilege to get there. And I think people get pissed when you're like, "No, I earned this." No, you didn't. You were 5, and they just put you on set. Right. But then if you're a good, shout out to Maude. Robert Downey Jr. I think his dad was a famous director, or like kind of famous. He worked in the industry.
Okay.
I think he's the opposite. Well, not the opposite, but his career has eclipsed. Mm-hmm. He's clearly very talented. So I think people don't have a problem if like you got more famous than your parent.
Right.
So that's my spectrum. It's like the 3 examples of Nepo, kind of fine, acknowledge your privilege, to like you've eclipsed.
Yeah.
So you're good.
You're good.
And anyone, if you're Robert Downey Jr., like clearly the dad must have been someone because they threw a junior on you. So that's my breakdown of 3, Nepo or Nas.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like the spectrum.
So I think we should wrap up here. My final takeaway for everyone is democratize nepotism. What can you learn from Nepo babies?
For you.
Mentorship, super important. Loose ties, super important. And finally, like recognize the privilege you have when given opportunities, but it doesn't mean that you can't pursue them. It doesn't mean you need to feel bad about them, but you do need to acknowledge that you had opportunities that others didn't.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Let's roll the credits. Our producer is Raymond Liu.
Our technical director is Yuchena Waogu.
Cassandra Cassidy is a Morning Brew newsletter writer.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Nepo babies.